UFC 299 is only a few days away, and this card is so stacked that there's no way I would miss out on getting to make a breakdown video for you guys. There's a lot of underdogs on here that caught me by surprise, and the dogs are barking. If I didn't go to UFC 298, I would have definitely went to this event, but I at least ordered the pay-per-view, which was a first in a really long time. Ever since I started my channel this year, from the first pay-per-view, I feel that it is necessary to stay on top of every pay-per-view from here on out. I am going to go through the entire card and give my predictions for each fight with the odds as well. Let's get to it. Starting off the prelims is a rematch between Joanne Wood versus Marina Moroz. In their first fight, Moroz finished Wood within the first round by submission. Out of 16 fights, Moroz has 11 wins, with 6 of them being by submission, while out of Wood's 24 fights, she has 6 finishes. Moroz trains out of Top Team, which is a solid gym to train out of. Even though their first match ended by submission, and that Wood has been finished by submission 5 times, I am picking Marina Moroz money line at -238, but if you want to risk the money, I say she submits Joanne Wood again at +300. Moving up the prelims, we have a flyweight matchup between CJ Vergara versus Almabayev. Out of 20 fights, Almabayev has 18 wins, with 12 of them being by finish. Even though Almabayev just had his first fight in the UFC in August of 2023, he is on a 14-fight win streak. Vergara, on the other hand, has 12 wins out of 17 fights and has been submitted twice. Both fighters are relatively the same age and fought similar opponents, with Osborne being one that Almabayev recently submitted that won a decision over Vergara. I think Almabayev will want to prove his worth to the UFC so he can fight ranked opponents, so I am picking him to remain on his win streak and to get either a submission or decision victory at -450. Continuing up the card, we have a heavyweight matchup between Josh Parisian and Despaigne. Josh Parisian earned a contract from Dana White's Contender Series in 2020 and has had 2 wins and 4 losses in the UFC since, while Despaigne just started his MMA career in June of 2022 and has all 4 wins by first-round knockout. I also seen something on Instagram that Despaigne has the longest reach in UFC history, so he has a huge reach advantage, and that he is also Olympic Taekwondo medalist. This fight is Despaigne's debut in the UFC, and I think he will want to put on a performance to impress Dana. So I am picking Despaigne to win by knockout at -280. Continuing up the card, we have a middleweight bout between Pereira versus Oleksiejczuk. Out of 40 fights, Pereira has won 29 of them with 18 finishes, but out of his 6 most recent fights, he won 4 of them by decision. Pereira's opponent has finished 15 out of 19 wins, with 14 of them coming by knockout. Oleksiejczuk has been submitted 4 times, and these were low-level grapplers. Pereira has excellent grappling, so Oleksiejczuk can be in some trouble here. Both fighters have been knocked out 1 time, but I think Pereira gets the win here, so I am picking a money line on Pereira at -148. For the last fight on the early prelims, we have a light heavyweight bout between Cutelaba and Felipe Lins. This fight was originally scheduled for UFC Vegas 80, but Lins fell ill and had to withdraw from the fight. Out of 27 fights, Cutelaba has 17 victories, with 13 of them by knockout. He has also been knocked out 3 times and submitted 4 times out of 9 losses. Out of Felipe Lins for losses by knockout, 3 of them happened in the very first round. Cutelaba is a pressure-heavy fighter and looks for opportunities to put his opponent away, and if Lins plans to stand and bang, I think Cutelaba can knock him out for sure, and if it goes to decision, I can see Cutelaba winning because of damage. So I am picking Ian Cutelaba to win by knockout or decision at -125. Starting the main prelims off, we have a bantamweight bout between Phillips versus Pedro Munhoz. Pedro Munhoz trains out of American Top Team and holds a record for having the most fights without being finished. He is always moving around and isn't relying on defense, and is usually first to engage, and out of 28 fights, he finished 13 of them. Phillips trains out of MMA Lab, and out of his 5 most recent fights, he won 4 of them. Out of Munhoz's last 5 fights, he only won 1 of them, and they all went to decision. Majority of both fighters' fights go the distance, so that's one of the biggest factors of why I am picking this fight to go the distance at -280. Moving up the card, we have our second fight on the main prelims, which is a light heavyweight bout between Gamrot versus Rafael dos Anjos. Gamrot trains out of American Top Team and has never been finished out of 25 fights. Dos Anjos, on the other hand, has 32 wins out of 47 fights and has 16 finishes, with 11 of them coming by submission. His style is clearly more of a grappler style, while Gamrot likes to wrestle and mix it up. I think this will be an interesting fight. They're close in age, but Gamrot is the younger fighter. I think this might be a retirement fight for Dos Anjos, so he will try his best to not get finished. Most of Gamrot's recent fights went the distance, and I think this fight will probably go the distance, but I'm leaning towards Gamrot to win, so I am picking a money line on him to win at -440. Moving up the prelims, we have a women's flyweight bout between Cerminara versus Barber. Barber earned a UFC contract from Dana White's Contender Series in 2018 and has won 8 fights and lost twice since. Out of 15 fights, she won 13 of them, with 8 of them by finish. Out of 23 fights, Cerminara won 18 of them, with only 3 finishes. She doesn't have a finishing ability, as the majority of her fights go to decision. Her style is more of a Muay Thai fighting style, and Barber is a boxer. Caitlin will definitely use her reach advantage and try to keep distance with leg kicks. If Barber can find her distance, she will definitely win this fight. I do think this fight will go the distance, but I'm leaning towards Barber as my pick, so I am picking a money line on her at -192. For the last fight on the prelims, we have a heavyweight bout between Blaydes versus Almeida. Almeida earned a UFC contract from Dana White's Contender Series in 2021 and has won all 6 fights, with 5 of them being by finish. He is also currently on a 15-fight win streak, which he holds the record for. Blaydes joined the UFC back in 2016, and his first opponent was Francis Ngannou. He has fought tougher opponents than Almeida. Blaydes has been knocked out 4 times, but they were all powerful strikers, while Almeida was knocked out in the first 20 seconds by a fighter that only has 1 knockout and 5 fights total. The only way I see Almeida winning this fight is by submission, while I can see Blaydes winning by knockout or decision. I haven't watched much of either fighter's tape, so I am not sure who's gonna win, so I am picking Blaydes to win by knockout or Almeida to win by submission at -135. Starting the main card with a banger, we have a bantamweight bout between Peter Yan versus Song Yadong. Song Yadong trains out of Team Alpha Male, and out of 29 fights, he won 21 of them, with 12 of them by finish. Peter Yan has won 16 fights out of 21 and has never been finished. Both have a similar style, and they take their time to read their opponents. Peter Yan is going to want to put on a performance, or there's a chance that he may never fight again. As much as I want him to win, Song is a tough opponent to put away. Both fighters go the distance a lot, so that's the outcome I'm picking for this fight at -250. Continuing up the card, we have a welterweight bout between Gilbert Burns versus Jack Della Maddalena. In 2021, Maddalena earned a UFC contract from Dana White's Contender Series and has won all 6 fights, with 4 being by finish. Gilbert Burns trains out of Kill Cliff FC and has fought tougher opponents than Jack. Out of 28 fights, he won 22 of them, with 15 being by finish. Maddalena has probably been training on his wrestling in defense. All he has to do is keep the fight standing, and he wins the fight. I don't think Jack has much of a finishing ability, but he can definitely outpoint Burns. That being said, I am flipped on this fight, and I am picking Gilbert Burns to win by submission, or Jack Della Maddalena to win by decision at plus 120. Moving up the card, we have one of the most anticipated fights of the card. That's a welterweight bout between Kevin Holland versus Michael Venom Page. I haven't seen MVP's fights, and I have just seen his highlights, so I'm not going to have much to say about him. Both fighters have 13 knockouts with 1 knockout loss. Holland is going to do what he did with Thompson, and that's to keep it standing because he can easily submit MVP if he wants. MVP is always looking for knockouts for highlight reels, but I don't see him knocking Holland out because Holland has insanely fast movement. I think this fight most likely goes the distance, but I am leaning towards Kevin Holland to win, so I am picking a money line on him at minus 135. For our co-main event, we have a lightweight bout between Dustin Poirier versus Bennett Saint Denis. Saint Denis has been in the UFC since 2021 and lost his debut in a decision and won the rest of his recent fights by finish. Out of 14 fights in his MMA career, he only lost 1 fight and has never been finished. Dustin is coming off of that nasty head kick knockout, so I think that's why a lot of people are picking against him. That happened in July of 2023, so it's been 8 months for him to recover, so I think that's plenty of time. He also trains out of American Top Team, which is a wrestle-focus-based gym. In my opinion, Dustin has very underrated grappling. Out of 37 fights, Poirier has won 29 of them with 22 finishes. Saint Denis has only 1 fighter I can think of that is a good fighter. While you can look at Poirier's record, you'll see all the legends he has faced. If this was a 3-round fight, I think I would be in favor of Saint Denis, but since it's a 5-round, I think experience will win this fight. Saint Denis will be the most active in the first few rounds, but I think Poirier will wear him down in the later rounds. I can even see Poirier getting a finish. Dustin Poirier is the most value underdog on this card, and I'm even betting money on him, so I am picking Poirier to finish Saint Denis by knockout or submission at plus 275. Finally, for our main event, we have a bantamweight bout rematch between Sean O'Malley versus Marlon Vera. In O'Malley's fights, you can easily tell that he gets gassed easily, and he has also never been 5 rounds yet, while Cheeto has had 3 5-round fights. Cheeto usually takes his time and has a slow approach and manages distance pretty well. I am worried that he's gonna leg kick a lot, because if he does, O'Malley isn't really good at blocking the kicks, and the same thing can happen. Or he might be too focused on blocking the kicks, and Cheeto takes the kick upstairs to the head and knocks him out. I was more in favor of Marlon Vera to win until I seen him weigh in.
Finisher in UFC bantamweight history and the number 5 ranked contender, Marlon Cheeto Vera.
See your hands on your shoulders.
135.
135, the official weight for Marlon Cheeto Vera. And with that, your UFC Bantamweight Championship main event at UFC 299 is official.
Back to the scale, mi amor.
We're gonna have to scan that and just hold this for a minute.
Right here, stay here. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Cheeto looks very drained, and Aljamain Sterling said that Marlon Vera had a bad camp, and I'm sure that's something he wouldn't lie about. I hope he had enough time to hydrate, otherwise O'Malley should win this fight fairly easily. The only way I see Marlon Vera winning is by submission, if he truly wants to win, because I don't see him knocking O'Malley out, and I don't see him winning by decision either. If Sean O'Malley wins, it'll most likely be by knockout, but I am picking him to win by knockout or decision at -250.